Now we bring on to HoopSpeak Live, Tom Haberstroh from the Heat Index. There he is, just getting,
Look how calm.
yeah, just
Look how
getting
calm
all
this
the
guy
doors.
Look how calm he is, Zach.
You didn't have a rogue delivery man.
What's up, guys?
Yeah, Zach's dog takes
right.
protecting Zach very seriously. That is a
dog doesn't
that
love
is a
you.
guard dog if I ever saw one.
That's right. It's a part German Shepherd right there. Also part Cocker Spaniel. Think about that.
I will not. Okay, you
know what
wrote
that means.
today something about about LeBron James playing at the 4, playing more of a power game, shooting fewer threes. This is something that Carmelo has also benefited a lot from, moving to the 4 and playing inside out rather than outside in a little bit more. What do you think about that generally with these guys who get typecast earlier in their career as, ball handlers on the perimeter? And not that Melo was ever thought of in the same vein as a ball handler as LeBron, but and then kind of later in their career go down and start doing work on the block.
You know what I think it is they both recognize that in order to win a championship or to get further than they're used to getting, they got to evolve. They got to evolve and get to a better place that wins basketball games. And for LeBron and Carmelo both, playing at a big man at the 4 just gives them such a sizable advantage that you don't have when you shoot like 30% from three-pointer like those two do. I think LeBron shoots a little bit better. But LeBron didn't want to do this. It took him a while to kind of embrace being the 4, but Spoelstra maintained that if they were going to get far, they need to create these mismatches. And last season, I think there was this like crystallized image of LeBron trying to back down JJ Barea and then passing out, if you remember. And that kind of like encapsulated the whole thing. Was even with JJ Barea behind him, he couldn't do anything. He just kind of froze up. So this has been huge for LeBron and the Heat. I think you're going to see more of it in the playoffs too.
Yeah, looking at the playoffs, the Heat, it felt like I knew the Heat better last year, if that makes any sense. Like I knew their curl sets, their horn sets. I felt like I had an idea of what I was going to see when I watched them. This year, they're arguably better, but they don't feel like they have the cohesiveness of direction, or I can't quite put my finger on it. Do you feel the same way? I mean, how do you look at them? Is this just an effect of the lockout?
It's a couple things. I think it is the lockout, and I think it's the fact that they just haven't played as a cohesive unit in like 2-3 weeks. Chris Bosh has been out for I think 5 straight games. Dwayne Wade has been out. LeBron has taken a game off here and there. So they haven't. The big 3 haven't been on the floors for like weeks together. So that's why you kind of feel like you don't really have a grip on this team. Well, Eric Spoelstra doesn't have a great handle of this team either, just because they haven't played together. So they've gotten a lot of practice time in. Today they had a practice where I think it was probably more strenuous than any Wizards game could be. So they're getting work in together off the court, off camera, but this team is so ready to get the playoffs started. It's unbelievable. They've been waiting for months now. I think they've been waiting since June 12th to get the playoffs started back again. So I think the Heat are going to look a lot different than what that you've seen in the past few weeks, because Spoelstra, the rotation is a complete mess, and that's kind of by design. He doesn't want to bust out his rotation just yet.
Interesting. Yeah, he is a guy who we saw last year tinker and develop things and mess around, and then when the playoffs got to it, I mean, they're going to shorten the rotation to 7 or 8 guys. You're not going to see those weird Chris Bosh minus LeBron and Wade lineups in the playoffs, I would imagine. The biggest impediment to the Heat going back to the finals is the Bulls. The Bulls have sneakily, it feels like, almost gotten better this year. I mean, they're sneakily word I'm making up today. They've gotten, I mean, their role players are better. Boozer has looked much better this year. Joakim Noah isn't injured. He was injured, he had that broken hand last year. But Derrick Rose is in doubt. Are people sleeping on the Bulls? I feel like they're more dangerous this year than they were last year, or is Rose's injury really kind of too big of a thing to overlook?
Well, in the postseason, the Dallas Mavericks kind of were they went against conventional wisdom last year in the sense that they won because of their depth, and I think that's kind of it supported this notion that the Bulls have a lot of depth and that can work. But as we're seeing with the Bulls, this is going to tighten. I think they're better with Taj Gibson. I don't think Carlos Boozer really provides much of a threat against the Heat. So I think with the Bulls, it's not going to be a case of people sleeping on them. I think it's a case of can Derrick Rose be healthy? They need him to be healthy. They can probably get by in the regular season, but in the postseason, when the rotations shrink, they're going to need him. And I think they should play Taj Gibson 40 minutes a game. That's how much I think he's better than Boozer.
Hey, Tom. People are really into this concept of peaking at the right time. Playoff teams entering the playoffs who are just having a tear down the end of the regular season. I seem to remember the Boston Celtics having something of a downward spiral right before making the finals in 2010. Is peaking at the right time a real thing? Is there any validity in being recently good? Is there any predictive quality in that? Oh, sharp no.
There is no predictive quality. If you look at the hottest teams going into the playoffs and the coldest teams, they perform just about the same. So that goes against all the conventionalism that you see on TV or on the radio waves, on the internet. A lot of people like to say they need to peak now to get ready for the playoffs. They shouldn't peak 2 months ago. But actually, if you look at it, the first 10 games of the season correlates with postseason success a lot closer than the last 10 games. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is which you're seeing with the Heat. They're not playing their guys. So as players are getting rested down the stretch, their win-loss record becomes completely irrelevant. So I don't think there's much to the notion of peaking at the right time, but I do think there's something to the fact of being healthy at the right time. So that can be kind of tough to tease out in the numbers, but I think teams need to be healthy rather than playing at their peak, so to speak.
Well, Boston, before resting a bunch of guys, had a pretty impressive stretch, especially defensively. How do you view them? Because over the large scope of the season, they're not that special. But when you take that just incandescently hot stretch into account, they obviously have a pretty high ceiling and must be at least considered, I think, as a possible contender. What do you make of them?
Yeah, I think they have a non-zero chance of winning the championship, so I guess that means they're a contender. I think we're going to have a tough time looking back on this regular season when it's all said and done and saying, what did we actually learn? Because in a lockout season, I think Mark Cuban suggested this much, is that all the statistics should be thrown out. They don't mean anything in this lockout season. I think he was speaking in hyperbole there. But I think we're going to see a lot of surprises.
All the while doing all sorts of things with those stats and trying to figure stuff out from them, I'm guessing.
Yeah. I think he might be talking about conventional per game statistics just because a lot of guys are resting more, and so they're not exactly playing to their full ability. But I think the Boston Celtics are going to be a fascinating case. They are as high-low expectations as you can find in the league. I think they could win it all. I would see a possibility of that happening, and I also think they could be swept if Rondo doesn't show up and Garnett, just looks old. I think they could be swept. So, I think people might be sleeping on the Hawks a little bit, and I think there is a case of maybe we're overrating the Boston Celtics. So. It's just a long-winded answer to just say we don't really know.